My name is Sade. I'm also a student here at UNC. I'm a senior as well. I've studied abroad twice, once in Hong Kong in the summer of like 2018, and this past summer in all of France. I'm a political science major and a history minor because I really find the world and politics very interesting and fascinating. Um, and about me, oh, not about me, well, about this presentation, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the lower levels of education. So like middle school and high school, and a little bit of my time at the mini university I spent like learning French while I was in Arles in summer. Oh, can you switch to the next? There we go, thank you. So as you can see by my crudely drawn arrow to this little dot right here, that's where Arles is located. It's in Provence, which is a little tiny little kind of, it's like a province really, really kind of on the nose. It's a tiny little city. I would guess like the population is at least like 2,000. It's a really tight-knit, close community. It's closest to the beach. You would need to take a bus though. I never had a chance to go because one, I left my bathing suit, and two, I'd always had class around that time. So it's a really old town in it too. A lot of it is built around like old Roman ruins and stuff. There's an amphitheater. There's old aqueducts that are like broken down along the side of the roads. There's like miles and miles of olive tree farms around there. So it just looks, if you think of like a quaint little town, it almost matches that description. But like if you go further down, like there's like a McDonald's, it's equivalent of a Walmart. It's called a G-Mart or something. And it's like further away from the city. So I went to France for a language intensive program under a program called like IES, study abroad. So I spent about 6 weeks there, learning French, taking classes in French, and living with a host family and everything. And it's there that I met my host sister, Pacom. She was about like 15-ish, and at the time she was in college and taking her taking her exams and things. But before we get to that, I'm gonna talk about my time abroad. So for the entire program, there was about like 25 to 30 of us, and we all took like the same class together. There was only 4 classes. There was the grammar class that started at 9:30 in the morning. There was a history class that started about an hour after that. Then you had like a 2-hour window break for like lunch. And then after that, there was a photography class that I took. And then there was another history class that everyone avoided. And so I spent most of my days like either going to class or like hanging out with my friends after it. I learned from one of the other students who became like a mentor for the program while we were there that it's quite like not sullen, but like kind of empty during the winter, because during the spring and the summer, there's a photography festival that goes on where everyone who's anyone, I suppose, like comes and sets up their little like display or the exposition around town, and everyone like goes to visit it and stuff. So it was very interesting to have that going on as I was taking like the photography class. In terms of like walking distance, everything was like pretty close. Like you could walk from one end of the city to the other in about like 20-ish minutes. Granted, you didn't go across the river to the other side of the town technically. So everything was really walkable. So you didn't really need like a car. You didn't really need a bike either or anything like that. So it made it pretty accessible and stuff. And one fun fact that I loved about this trip is that every Saturday, you would always hear the church bells go off because everyone was getting married at the same time, one after another after another. If you sat in the square, you could watch one couple go in to get married and then come out like rapid fire. It was very entertaining. Next up for my host family. So if you see in the little distant picture, that's also part of a Roman ruin. We were out in ends of the aqueduct. That's my host mom you see in the shade. She had a daughter, Pacom, as you've heard, and they were like the best. Like host mom did a lot for me. For my photography class, that's actually why she took me out there. I had an assignment where I had to take like super realistic photo or something. And she was like, yeah, it's the perfect place to go. And, you know, we went, and it was fun, although treacherous, because my other friend who, like, you know, I shared my host family with another student from UNC. She was climbing on the rocks, and I was like, I will not be held responsible for this. But yes, the mom was originally from a different region before she moved down south, and she told me she liked it because it was calmer, it was nice, everyone knows each other, and stuff like that. Everyone from our program pretty much stayed with the host family, and these host families even knew each other. At one point, we figured out, like, one of our friends stayed with a friend of Puck Home. We were like, oh, everyone knows each other and stuff like that. Because in Arles, they have, like, a lot of this, parents have, like, you know, an agreement with IES to, like, you know, host kids during the summer and stuff like that. So it makes it more of a realistic experience for all of us to, like, engage with, like, the language. Because most of the time, my host mom would not speak English to us because she wanted us, like, to learn stuff. So you quickly learn how to, like, ask for stuff, how to, like, you know, go about your day. Figured out really quickly how to say dishwasher because I did not know what it was called at the time. And then this gets on to what I wanted to talk about for at least, like, school. So for school in France, or the school system in France, there's, like, 3 levels. There's primary, which is like lycée maternelle, which means, like, you know, maternal school, like the very, like, beginning of, like, you know, your learning, which is like from ages 7 to like 10ish. There kids go to school, learn grammar and French pretty intensively. My host mom told me that that's, like, the core thing that a lot of kids learn. They have to learn the grammar correctly because otherwise it's very hard to, like, you know, apply it and stuff. Next up is secondary, which is kind of like middle school, which is called collège, which is from the ages of 11 to 15. Here, it's kind of like, it almost feels like, I'm gonna say, it was similar to college in the terms of time schedule. So a lot of these kids would, like, go to class early in the morning, but, like, have long breaks and stuff to have lunch, then go back to, like, school and stuff, and then, like, you know, continue with their lessons. But for a lot of, like, transition, like, here we go to high school, we go from middle school to high school, like, directly, no questions asked. But in the school system in France, in collège, you take le brevet, or it's like a test at the end of your, like, couple of years there, where you have to make a certain score to either, like, go towards, like, you know, your specified, like, high school, or go towards, like, a trade school or something that you can put more, like, effort into. Pakom, when we were there, she was in the middle of all of that and stuff. She wanted to be, like, an actor and stuff, so she had, like, applied to go to the school in Avignon. Avignon is this little town. It was actually bigger than Arles, a little further away, which would require her to actually move from home and, like, live in a dorm there and stuff. But you can see, like, it's a very intensive process, and a lot of parents are, like, very engaged with it, because my host mom spent, like, the entire day ringing down the Avignon school's phone, trying to figure out, like, you know, if she had been accepted or not, and if she had gotten the housing necessary. So you can tell, like, it's a lot different. And once you go to high school, you're about from, like, not 5, you're from, like, ages 15 to 18. And this is where, like, you pretty much, like, focus on what you want to be. Like, you have to know what you want to do almost by the time you hit high school. So if you wanted to be a doctor, you should be focusing your classes more on, like, you know, mathematics and science. If you want to be an actor like Pacome, you focus more on, like, theater-oriented classes. Or if you wanted to be, like, you know, a historian, you focus on more history-based classes and stuff like that. Because you pretty much prepare you prepare yourself for, like, whatever, like grand école you're going to later on, which is, like, a university, and stuff like that. If you go to the next slide, you actually see, like, the whole kind of system. So you see from, like, 11 to 14, that's, like, you know, the middle school, the college area. Basically learn what you need to learn, get the basics down, study for your brevet, and make sure you get good scores to go on. If you see up top with the blue cap, that's one trade that you can do. Like, it's kind of like a trade path, where you, like, you know, you focus on whether you want to be, like, you know, an electrician or some other, like, small trade or something like that. And if you like pass your bac and do really, really well, you can do like baccalaureate professional, a technological bac, or like a general bac. General is like, you know, they're very specific. Like technological, you just go on for like stuff like computer science and things like that. For stuff that you want to do when you go to like actual like university and stuff. So it gives you like a head up when you actually do attend. In addition, for like when like students go to university, much like in Croatia, they either take a break or they go on and like do some work to like, you know, save up some money to go, because it's not actually expensive to go there. It's comparatively cheaper to attend university while you're in France. But in addition, one more thing. Oh, what's it gonna be? But most of the time when people do go to university in France, the retainment rate is a bit on the low side. So only about like 60% of like students who attend like, you know, French university actually continue on to graduate and stuff like that. But it's not as busy as like, you know, universities in America. There's comparatively a lot less like homework and things you have to do on the side daily. For when I was in IES program, basically I did 2 assignments through the entire like course of the program for each class, and then that was that. I graduated and got my grades. So if you go to the daily school life, well, the little sample French lycée schedule, this is like the typical like schedule that you have in like France, at least if you're like high school. Middle school, it also matches up a little bit. So you don't have the same like classes every day. Like they switch up what classes you start out with and what classes that you end with. So you'll have like history, English, math, German, lunch, and something like that for Monday, but have something completely different for Tuesday. In addition, as you can see, on Wednesdays and Saturday, you have half days. That's because of a religious rule. It's not really, it was secular rule, really. The French government, like in 1800s, when it became like, you know, standardized, basically gave that day off for like kids to practice and like, you know, learn their religion and stuff like that. So that practice kind of like, you know, carried on to now. However, though, it's a half day. It used to be on Thursday. They switched it over just to, you know, I guess more, you know, just to make it even. And then you also have school on Saturday to kind of make up for that half Wednesday. Oftentimes I would see like Pacome going off somewhere on Saturday, and I'll be like, Pacome, where are you going? She's like, I'm going to school. And I'm like, ouch. But she seemed like she had fun and everything. But yes, for Pacome, when like she left earlier than I did, because my class started at 9:30, she would always have like, you know, this typical, not say typical breakfast. She would always have like, you know, cereal. She would either have like, you know, bread and toast, or she would make like eggs or something, whatever is like the quickest. And then as you can see, that that long time period from like 12 to like 1:55 for lunch. Oftentimes like students are like let go from like their school to like wander around to go get food or go home or something. So you're pretty much trusted to get yourself out of school and get yourself back. Oftentimes I would see Pacome when I was out and about getting food, seeing her with her friends, or she was getting like, you know, food at the boulangerie or patisserie or something like that. Oftentimes she saw me getting ice cream because that's all I ever ate. Let's see. Oh, I also made a little meme for my class, as you can see, because we had to do like a little commentary on French culture at the time, or at least the culture in Arles. So, you know, that time period of lunch that everyone has, it's very long. The idea is that all the other establishments that aren't actual restaurants close down for that time period to get food. So like cafes will close down, boutiques will close down, the phone store closed down, pretty much everything closed down. And oftentimes if you had like things you wanted to get done at that time, it most likely they wouldn't be open. So you'd have to like go to a later date or go earlier in the day to get it done. My friends always said like, darn, every time it happened. But yes, so that's pretty much that. Oh, yeah, this actually is related to something, so it's historical kind of ish. So this is pretty much like the 12 to from 12 to 2 is like the hottest time of the day, at least in the South, and in the past it never made sense to actually work that, hard in like, beating sun. So they pretty much made like, this unspoken rule that everyone pretty much got off for this time period and relaxed and ate to avoid like, getting heat stroke or something. So that's pretty much the historical reason for why they have like the Los de Fermecho and stuff like that.